Welcome to TAC Tic Talk. Today we're thrilled to have TAC editorial contributor Dr. Matthew DiDuro, a seasoned chiropractor with over 24 years of experience. He's a clinical director, educator, and expert in diabetic and neuropathic pain care. Today we're diving deeper into his articles about shockwave therapy and the amazing capabilities behind this healing modality.
Love what you guys have done over the last 3 or 4 decades. How long has it been?
We're getting up there.
4.
Huh?
Yeah.
4 decades. Your dad started it, right?
Yeah, getting close to 5.
Years.
Yeah.
46 years since our dad found it with our mother, and now we can claim at least, Joe? We've been involved at least 25, 27 years here.
Yeah. So, we've got this article that's on track for mailing in June. And, you're an expert in a wide variety of things. I think I first came across your name in some articles when we were talking about neuropathy and some of these other intervention styles. And then recently I saw you at the Parker Vegas seminar. So we got to talk a little bit about your background, which you mentioned that today's chiropractic thing. And I was like, wow, that was like the golden age of magazines. You had that journal, you had like chiropractic products and all these different ones. And so it's almost like a fraternity now because that era tends to be less prominent, but and you mentioned that you were working with a Shockwave company, specifically SoftWave.
That's correct.
And so that just kind of opened up a whole new set of interesting questions that came to my mind. But what do you think is the unique factor in shockwave therapy that helps to really get the results? Because not everyone's using it, right?
That's right. And to clarify 2 points, Joe, my older brother, Dr. Joe DiDuro, started Neuropathy Treatment Centers of America. He used to do a lot of advertising with you. And so he built that from 2007 to 2017. And now he's in Costa Rica. He's doing some really cool research. But so I started the first big neuropathy clinic here in Atlanta. And I used his protocols from 2009 till present. And in 2017, after about 8 years, I realized that my brother's protocol was amazing, had about an 85% success rate, but there was 15 to 20% of the people who were just too far gone, or we just weren't able to help with our non-invasive protocols. So I really kind of scoured the earth to find out where we could use other devices that would help. And it's funny, my wife was the marketing director at Today's Chiropractic, and I ended up marrying her, so we've got some marketing in our DNA as well. But she went to high school with John Warlick, who's the inventor and founder of this. And my brother-in-law wrestled with him in high school, and they were the ones that kind of pushed me to go see him. In 2007, I had a 350-pound patient fall off the table. I grabbed him, dislocated my right shoulder, detached ligaments in my wrist, tore my shoulder up, had 2 surgeries, out of work for 3 years. And I ended up really not being able to adjust anymore. So I sold all my clinics, had 2 clinics in New York. We moved back to Atlanta, where my wife's from, and I started teaching at Life University. And I was there from 2007 to 2009. And as my brother started launching neuropathy treatment centers, I was doing that. So I didn't have to adjust as much. But for 10 years, I've had pain in my wrist. So from 2007 to 2017, every waking hour was like a pain level 5. I couldn't adjust. I couldn't swing a tennis racket, ride a bike, anything with extension. And I was just like, I guess I'm going to have to live with it. So my brother-in-law drags me up to John Warlick, to SoftWave. He does a 3-minute treatment on me. This is April of 2017. I got finished, and I was like, where's my pain? I couldn't believe it. And again, for 10 years, I've been searching. And I went home, I told my wife, I go, this must be the placebo effect, because I just don't know what happened. I couldn't, everything I thought about healing was like flipped upside down. I went 2 more treatments the next week. I was 90% better, bought a device, and I didn't have to SoftWave my wrist for another 14 months.
Wow.
So I knew if I had been searching for 10 years and it helped me, I knew there was thousands of other people that could benefit. And that's when I came on board with SoftWave and I said, look, I can get this in every chiropractor's office in America.
Mm-hmm.
And John Warlick laughed. He's like, okay, Ray Kroc. And I really felt that. I felt that way. I was like, I just met this wonderful device that they had an identity crisis. No one knew what they did or who they were. Mm-hmm. And I knew my story could at least help in my clinic here. Mm-hmm. In this clinic, we see between 120, probably around 120 new SoftWave patients a month, mm-hmm. just in our Atlanta-based clinic. And I don't say chiro clinic or patients because they're coming in specifically for SoftWave. This is really consumer driven. Wow. So what started out with just me being a patient, but now I'm obviously an advocate and a SoftWave ambassador for this therapy because there was nothing else that could help me.
That's amazing. I wanted to jump in and ask because I was going to ask then about how many chiropractors do you think currently even know or utilize this technology?
We're about 2% of the chiropractic population here in North America. So about 1,200 chiro clinics have this now. Okay. We started with one right here.
Wow.
Is SoftWave a U.S. company then? Is that...
we have North American distribution rights, but we do mm-hmm. have German counterparts. There's our partners. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's engineered, designed, and assembled in a beautiful city in Constance, Germany.
Right. I remember even a couple of decades ago hearing some about the Shockwave therapy, and it mostly emanates from Europe. And there's a substantial amount of information and research they've done on it up to this point. And so even recently, it's still getting traction within the chiropractic market and in North America.
Yeah, and again, Shockwave is a huge sector, right? And right. You can't pile all the different devices into one basket. I'm getting ready. Next month, we'll be in Amsterdam for an international Shockwave symposium. And there are different types of devices. So there's a radial. It's a radial pulse. Mm-hmm. And it is ballistic in nature. And it's, like a little metal stylus. So it can pound and it does create trauma. And it works on a superficial basis. Mm-hmm. Our device is genuine lithotripsy. So that's the same technology they've used for the last 40 years to break up kidney stones, biliary stones, and salivary stones with an 85% success rate. Wow. So you've got the genuine lithotripsies and you've got these radial devices. So true shockwaves now are described as devices that create supersonic sound waves. So there's electromagnetic, there's electrohydraulic, and then there's piezoelectric. So there's all different types that create these supersonic sound waves.
Well, that is kind of interesting. Now, so how do the SoftWave is more like the lithotripsy? It's like an expansile wave, right?
So the hospital grade lithotripsies are $1 million, $500,000. They take up half of this room. Mm-hmm. This is a third or fourth generation now. So over the last 40 years, they've made it smaller and smaller. This one, you don't need anesthetics. And the thing that's beautiful about it, this is one of our probes right here, but there's a diagnostic feature to it. So what happens is you can run this over normal joints, normal tissue, and there's no pain. As soon as you get to an area where there's arthritis, inflammation, or poor circulation, there's this biofeedback from the patient where you're right there. And you can literally pinpoint where that true source of pain and injury is coming from. So I like the diagnostic component. And that's really what, we've taught the doctors here in the United States is the versatility of this technology.
So with that being said, is this more useful on, say, extremities, or would you say to the spine? Is there a danger when you're doing it around the spine?
Great question, Joe. This is using what's called mechanotransduction. There is no damage to the tissue. What mechanotransduction means is it's compressing the cells and expanding it. So we are generating sound waves that are traveling 3,355 miles an hour. They can penetrate the depth of a soup can into the body, right, at the highest energy level. So it's working on a cellular level. And we now have 25 papers that show we activate stem cells within minutes of treatment. Half of those are human, half are animal studies. But it's really exciting because stem cells are the repairman of the body. And you know, it's been a market where it's one injection, it's one and done. And it's a roll of the dice. You hope that, you know, 50% of the people get better and 50% have just wasted $5,000. So
Yeah, or
this
10.
this technology, I call it true cellular regenerative options for the working class man and woman, because it's a fraction of the cost. It, you know, could be anywhere from $50 all the way up to $200, depending on size and severity of a treatment. But most patients need a handful of sessions to get the optimal benefits.
Interesting. So how long is a session, would you say? I mean, how long do you have to apply it to an injury? I mean, do you have like a whole protocol that you've
Oh
been?
yeah, and that's kind of like, so when I got involved with SoftWave, which is just a great company, it was a little mom and pop shop. They had sold, you know, 3 dozen devices, 4 dozen devices to like Harvard, MIT, University of California, San Diego, San Francisco, Baylor. They were in the urology market because this helps so much with men's and women's sexual issues and pelvic floor problems. So there was no CPT code, and there weren't a lot of urologists that were like, yeah, let me buy this, you know, very expensive device and then not be able to get paid for it. The chiropractic was the perfect match because we know how to sell cash plans. We also like non-invasive, non-opioids, non-cortisone type options. It takes 3 to 4 minutes to deliver a treatment. And, you know, most patients notice relief from anywhere from 15 hours to 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a series of treatments together. So the protocols were more urology. You know, we've got a group of doctors over the last 5 years that have built like best practice protocols. So we have like orthopedists like Martin O'Malley, Dr. Martin O'Malley out of Hospital for Special Surgery. He's the foot and ankle specialist to the NFL, NBA, and the PGA. And I like what he says. He's had it since 2014. And he's like, I'm not here to discuss who's got the best Shockwave. All I can tell you is I have 3 of them. And this is what we utilize. So it's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous. I mean, stem cells, I think everyone recognizes, you know, harnessing stem cells is really the next generation of treatments, especially for soft tissue injury. So when did these studies that you have that demonstrate the effect on stem cells, where have those been published? I mean, I haven't been paying attention much to this specific category of information, but I'm just not aware of them.
The thing I love, we're celebrating 20 years of our company this week. We have a big celebration. And over those 20 years, John Warlick and our board of directors and our partners in Germany have spent over $25 million in research and development. We have over 130 studies. The biggest thing was when we partnered with the Austrian workers' comp system 15 years ago, where they were attacking the most expensive conditions. And they were utilizing, you know, the radial device, the ones from Storts, the Pesios and ours. And what they were testing all of them, and they were tracking, and they ended up, we got the contract because our treatment needed less pulses, less visits, and more patients noticed a significant difference after the first session. And that's why we got that multi-million-dollar contract with the Austrian workers' comp system. And they tracked everything. And that's how we've seen, like one of the things I saw recently is we've helped save the Austrian workers' comp system over 70 million euros in non-healing fractures. Those are fractures that weren't getting enough blood supply, weren't ossifying to the point where they were recovered. And they're usually in lower extremities and in older patients like diabetics or things like that. So that was a huge impact for them. And again, I believe that this is the future. It's non-invasive, right? When you look at the algorithm for healthcare, you don't start with the most expensive, most invasive. You start on this end, and you really exhaust all of your conservative options, even before you go with acupuncture and then cortisone. Like cortisone, as you know, is really a standard of care here in the States. But the problem is the rest of the world looks at it as barbaric. There are 33 negative side effects to cortisone injections. When we were growing up, we were only allowed 3 injections in our lifetime. You know, now it's 3 per year.
Wow.
But, you know, our international medical director, he's like, he does not use cortisone. And he was a big time trauma surgeon in Austria.
Wow.
Dr. Wolfgang Scheidt.
No, that's fascinating. So, Matt, your next article that's going to appear in the June issue of the American Chiropractor talks about shockwave and reflexology. Here we're talking about treating symptoms and injuries, but it seems like you've got a protocol even for reflexology. Can you talk a little bit about that so that those interested will, you know, go to the magazine and see what you had to say there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't give away all the secrets.
I won't.
No, just a little snap.
On the back of the brain. Well, here's the thing. The reflexology points have been around for over 2,000 years, right? John Warlick, who loves them, he'll tell you he's a scientist, but he's not a healthcare provider. And well, we found that just working on certain parts on the reflexology of the patient creates a systemic positive effect. Now, I'm not sure if it's because we're hitting those sensory nerves, but I mean, we've done it with stroke patients. We've done it with neuropathy patients. The reason why I love bringing this in to our neuropathy-focused clinic here in Atlanta was we started realizing that what used to take 24 sessions in 3 months to get a 20% improvement in sensory nerve function, when we started adding SoftWave just once a week to the feet, we noticed a 35% improvement in half the amount of time, 6 weeks, and half the amount of visits. So it opened up our staff to treat more people, and we saw patients get better faster with less visits. And I think that is what was most exciting about it. And I believe you'll see that, you know, when you pair this with chiropractic, it's not 2 + 1 = 3. It's like 3 × 10 = 30. And patients, they see that cumulative effect of these treatments.
Well, that's what I wanted to jump in and ask, because I know, you know, there's always, you coming from the Marietta, Georgia area in life, you know, I'm sure you're very aware of the zealot diehards hands-only healing. So I wanted to find out, how does this marriage, you know, with, how do you see that working in for that kind of a chiropractor or all kinds of chiropractors? You know, is it a threat? Does it dovetail nicely? You'd mentioned this because you've got, you know, you're bringing them in specifically for that care.
Well, to me, it's the Trojan horse to bring more people into chiropractic offices. And let's face it, even though this wonderful healing profession has been around for 127, 128 years, we're only tapping into 12 to 13% of the population. And that's sad. And since I graduated 30 years ago, we've been hearing about how the floodgates are going to open when 16 to 18% of the population, and you're going to have to be open from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. Well, it hasn't happened yet, unfortunately. And, you know, people just don't consider chiropractic always in their Rolodex. And I believe this device will help elevate our profession to prime time, I call it, to levels that we haven't seen in over 125 years. And, you know, it's funny, some of the strong philosophical chiropractors look at me as somewhat of a, you know, anti-chiropractic. But in fact, if BJ Palmer and Dee were alive at this time, they would be using it because of the diagnostic factor and features of this. And again, it multiplies our effects. And I see patients hold their adjustments longer, and they don't need as many treatments. As I get older, I don't want to see people 55 times a year, right? My body just can't, stand up to the rigors of this profession. So, yeah, that's kind of where I see it. And to go back to your reflexology question, I hope you can see this. This is the homunculus. Okay, this is the
Sure.
part of the somatosensory cortex of the brain, and you see this image. This is the homunculus person, because why are his hands and his feet and lips and tongue so much bigger? Is because that's where the bulk of the sensory nerves. So you have over 147,000 sensory nerves per square inch in the hands and the feet and lips and sexual organs. So I believe the reflexology is tied in with those sensory nerves. And it's like we're opening up, or we're opening up parts of the brains that haven't been stimulated because with this technology. So I think that's why it's working with the reflexology, as well as you combine that with modern science and our understanding of how the nervous system works.
I'm wondering about that too. You mentioned about the diagnostic and therapeutic. I know you kind of did a gloss over, but explain to me how that diagnostic, how that works. Is it two different settings? Is it the same? Is it when it's in a therapeutic?
Great question, Jack. Yes. So at the diagnostic, our energy level is a little higher, and I teach my doctors. I want them to become healthcare pain detectives, right? Because so many people, there's like, for 35 years, I've been going around the world and asking, where does pain come from, right? And it's like that book, Are You My Mommy? Remember that? We read to our kids. And I would go up to these different professors and world-renowned surgeons and neurologists, and I'd say, where's pain come from? And you get all these different types of, really detailed answers. But when I break it down for my doctors, it's pain comes from areas of poor circulation, areas of damaged tissue like arthritis, but also inflammation. And that's really the silent killer in so many disease processes, as well as aging. What makes this $1 billion technology is the fact that we can downregulate inflammation. So not only are we stimulating stem cells, which is kind of sexy and like, wow, but the real meat and potatoes of this is that these supersonic sound waves are helping flush out inflammation that's been laying stagnant in the joint space and the surrounding connective tissue. And that's why we see such near immediate relief of from the first visit. So the energy level is a little higher when we're at the diagnostic, as we're teaching them to be a detective. We're mapping out that area. And then there's a biofeedback component where the patient will be like, oh, right there. So we know, oh, there's the bicep tendon. Then we test the transverse ligament. How is that? The deltoid tuberosity. All these different areas, right? So we're able to really hone in and pinpoint where that true source of injury or damage is. That's why we're in close to 30 professional sporting teams. It's like every other week we have to change which logos we're using. Just this past week, or 2 weeks, the Boston Red Sox, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the UFC just got another device. The Atlanta Braves have two here, and they just got another one for their AAA league. So it's been fun to watch, right? Because again, it's the players that are getting treated in clinics like ours, and then going back and telling their trainers and orthopedists, like, we need this.
Outstanding. Dr. DiDuro. Now, this all sounds awesome, but how does a guy out in the field that wants to give it a try, how do they catch up with you, to experience what you're sharing here?
Well, I'm on the road a lot, because not only do I help educate patients and doctors about this amazing technology, but I also will fly out and train those clinics. And I've trained in the last 5.5 years, over 300 clinics across the country. So the best way to get in touch with me is through my cell phone, which is 404-402-1903. You can text it. You can email me, and I think we usually have that in the articles. Or you can follow me on social media and see the amazing transformations that we're seeing with 1 and 2 visits.
What is do you have an Instagram?
I do. I think it's Dr. Matt DiDuro. My TikTok is blowing up. That's the one you got to look at. Dr. Matt
Is that the
DiDuro.
TikTok? Well, that's not going to be around in 6 months, my man.
Well, I mean, I went all in on it, and that's what will happen. But
I think this is going to stick up. I think it's going to hold up, but
what's funny about TikTok and social media? We used to just show, like, we do the treatment, and then we'd show the patient afterwards, like, oh my God, my arm's working. And then Joseph Cipriano, who is huge YouTube and has, a couple million followers, came in for a treatment on his wrist. And he's like, you got to actually show the complaints from the patient and what they can't do. If it's like walking up steps or whatever. And then you got to show 10 or 20 seconds of the treatment, because no one knows what the heck SoftWave is. So now I'm actually, we do longer format. And sometimes I wouldn't show the treatment because the patient's like, oh. And what we found through TikTok and Facebook is viewers like to see other people in pain and suffering.
Pretty much.
It's tragic. Reality is tragic.
It's like, when you see that rubberneck on the car accident on the side of the road, we want to look. So it's again, it was kind of against what I would have thought, but it's really picking up, and there it is. That's it.
DiDuro. It's DiDuro at
thank you. And then
at DiDuro on TikTok. So.
Thank you. And you'll see we had 2.2 million views when we were at the Miami Dolphins, right down by
you got great reach. I mean, are you getting paid for that too? I mean,
I've made $24 in the last year on TikTok, so I am considered an influencer now. My daughter told me.
That's big time. That's $24 more than almost everyone else. So.
Yes, but I love it because I used to think I would, when I first got this device in 2017, I'd come home and I'd tell my wife, Sherry, I said, you're not going to believe this. This lady came in. She was in a walker, and when we did these SoftWave treatments, and she left, and her husband carried the thing out, the walker out. She didn't need it, and my wife would say, "Did you videotape it?" And I go, "No, I didn't." She goes, "Well, I don't believe you." So I would put this down, and I would pick up my phone and start recording whatever came out of their mouth, just so I could prove to my wife. And I thought, oh my gosh, these are so amazing. If I keep posting these, that organically media would find us and they would call me and put me on the Today Show. Well, that hasn't happened, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But you were thought, I want to, if it's not that, then I want to be on TAC Tic Talk. That's the thing, right? So here you are, baby steps, but this is a huge leap.
American Chiropractor will help us get there.
We've been tracking your success on TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah. They robbed our whole vibe, but that's okay,
I love it. So
now, but you're still practicing, right, Matt? Or did you go back to practice? Yeah. Okay. Are you doing like diversified adjusting? What's your practice look like?
So I work in this clinic 2 days a month. I work 2 Saturdays. I have 3 wonderful chiropractors. We have a multidisciplinary setting, 1 medical doctor on staff, 1 nurse practitioner every day. So we are able to take care of a wide range. But I will tell you, the biggest impact is that we've been able to scale this, right? From our little concept here, this prototype here in Atlanta, to now over 1,200 clinics. And people say, Matt, are you upset that this guy's copycatting you or doing it just like? No, that's exactly what I wanted. I knew that Matt DiDuro and our little clinic here in Atlanta couldn't reach everyone. And you think of Clarence Gonstead. I mean, he was an amazing chiropractor that had an airstrip behind his office where people would fly in and out of. And I was like, I literally would have people flying in from Baltimore, driving in from Alabama, Northern Florida, South Carolina, and I would literally just give them a pamphlet and say, listen, you don't have to drive this far. You can show this to your doctor when you get home. And we can talk about them getting it there. And I swear to you, over the last 5 years, every month, between 1 and 2 sales per month are coming from patients who are finding SoftWave treatments, going back to their primary care or orthopedist or physio or chiro and saying, we need this. This got me better. So, I mean, that's why I love that patients are driving this emerging market.
That's amazing. Now, I want to jump in and ask, okay, so we've heard about this. I'm not sure if if this is common knowledge, but what is the price range for this kind of a device? Is it in the thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands?
Well, I mean, the beautiful thing is there's a range, right? So, I mean, we're in 13 trauma centers in Europe. We're at UCLA Trauma Center. We're at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, neurosurgery and orthopedic. So yes, we have the Pro Series, hospital grade. Those are a little more expensive, but we also have like the Camrys or the Corollas for doctors to. That's kind of what I started with. So you can get
That's
into
the analogy
this.
of the cars, isn't it? The Camry and the Corollas. I was like, are these like names?
No, that's we just have a range, right? We work with Urigold, which is for the urologist. We work with Dermagolds, which is for wounds and dermatologists. As of January 2023, we now get paid for wounds, diabetic ulcers, and burns in multidisciplinary clinics. And then we have the Orthogold that has the 4 different series. So we have the Orthogold 100, the 350, 500, and the million pulses. So those are more for the research, hospital grades. But I mean, most of my docs lease this with a zero buyout at the end. It's very affordable. It could be anywhere from $550 all the way up to $1,600 a month for our Pro Series.
Okay.
So typically it's basically one new patient. And you guys know, you saw 28 years ago, 30 years ago when decompression came into the chiropractic market. And would you say it had a good impact on our profession?
Definitely. I can't imagine anybody would say it didn't. I mean, you've got another option to prevent surgery or help with failed back surgery. So,
yeah, not everything, chiropractic does not get everything better.
Exactly.
I think we have to acknowledge that, right?
Well, this SoftWave in particular will have a 10 time the impact that decompression did. And let me tell you why. Decompression can do cervicals, lumbars, okay, maybe some thoracic, but SoftWave you can put on every joint in your body, right? So elbow, wrist, low back, shoulders. And you asked Joe a question. I mean, the early devices, it was more expensive to run them, and at higher energy levels to get deep enough into the vertebral foramen area, you would burn through probes. Now with the new Pro Series, the Orthogold 350, it doesn't matter. It's 75% less expensive to maintain and operate this. So it's just in the 7 years that I've been part of this, we've seen some huge transformations. And right now, I mean, we have a 6-month deferred payment option and then $99 for 6 months. So for $594, one of our doctors out there listening can get into this technology and have a world-class type of therapy.
Amazing. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm getting signals that we're running out of time today for our talk, but but we've got plenty of food for thought now, and definitely I'm sure that everybody's going to look forward to looking for your ongoing editorial participation and looking forward to hearing more testimonials, great feedback, both from, the doctors as well as the patients about this great technology that's available for them and their patients.
I just want to say there's a whole team behind us at SoftWave that's making this, shout out to Alan LaRossi. He's our COO and it's his birthday today, but a great team in finance. Our service center is world class. And I think, Kendall Gamble, nice shout out to her. She's our National Director of Training. The really cool thing about our device is that we fly one of our national certified instructors to help launch that SoftWave on your first day. And the beautiful thing is we want that doctor to grab 10 to 12 of the worst patients that we line up over 2.5 or 3 hours, and we show them and their staff just how easy it is to implement into their clinic. So thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Joe, for the opportunity, and JR.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate
Dr.
it.
DiDuro, thank you very much. And so I'm sure that, your success is only going to snowball from here on out. When you're on Good Morning America, remember to say that Tic Talk was really the thing that got you to the next level. But other than that, I look forward to seeing you around at the seminars, though, because I know you do travel a lot, right? What's the next one you're going to be at? In June, where will you be?
June, I'm going to be in Amsterdam at the International Shockwave Symposium. There'll be 200 doctors from all over the world, cardiologists, urologists, neurologists, orthopedists, chiropractors, physios, all in one room helping drive this.
A little more local, Matt. Dr. Matt, where are you?
Well, no, write an article on what you learned there, because that's highly relevant.
We will. Thank you. And Laura will help us with that. She's really great. So, locally, I think in June, I'm with, August, Matthew Loop at his event. And it's going to be at the Porsche Experience Center. It's just amazing. If anybody gets a chance, it's a wonderful media and marketing, digital marketing format. So,
what location, what state and city is that in?
That is in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Porsche Experience.
Okay,
it's a wonderful facility.
Have them looking in the American Chiropractor to keep it in track of where you're going to be
I'll
next.
tell them. Yes. All right. I'll tell them.